This Sunday, I hope you remember what the gospel was. Especially when you are in the middle of Lent and the gospels are a whole chapter in the Bible. This one is just 3 measly verses. Can you believe it? And they are fairly familiar verses that are cited all the time. It's difficult sometimes to preach on lessons that are so very familiar to us. But the truth is that these few words encapsulate within them what is the very heart and soul of the Christian faith. And they bear remembrance and reflection upon, probably not just one Sunday out of the church year, but probably every day of our lives. They're that significant. As I look at this lesson for today, it's clear to me that there are basically 2 parts, 2 foci, that we are asked by Matthew to remember what Jesus said. The setting of these words are that Jesus is instructing his disciples after he has chosen them as his disciples and is basically pushing them out the door to begin their own ministry in the world. And what does he say to them? Well, these 2 parts that I identify as I look at this lesson. The first part is, whoever welcomes you welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. The second significant words that I see in this passage is this: whoever gives even a cup of cold water to one of these little ones in the name of a disciple is not one of these will lose their reward. What are we really saying? What is Jesus really saying to us, who, after all, as I make the point every Sunday, are the audience to whom these words are directed? Because we are the disciples of Jesus Christ just as much as they were. We are called to do the same thing. That's why we say in the Creed that we are an apostolic church. We are the apostles. We are the ones who are sent, which is what the word apostle means. One who is sent. So what are we sent to do? What is the significance of these words? Well, the first one says something that I've lifted up before you on other occasions, I know. But it's just so amazing that I don't think any of us really grasp the full significance of it. Jesus is saying that there is a holy unity that connects God the Father and God the Son, who is also our brother Jesus, with all those who are Jesus' disciples, and by extension, all those who are disciples of the disciples. Those who serve not only in their own name or by their own power or presence, but by nothing less than the Lord God. It's awesome when you truly think that each one of us is a vessel for God's presence in the world. That's what he's saying, isn't he? Nothing less than that. You, me, us all are God in our flesh, in our world. God lives in and through us to do the things that God wants done in his creation. What a responsibility. What an honor. What a mission. What if that was uppermost in our minds all the time? Christianity is different than many world religions, because many world religions posit the existence of a God who is up there somewhere, wholly beyond us, whom we are simply to serve. Christianity goes a step further in saying that the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And Jesus is telling the first disciples, that not only means that he came down from heaven, from the Father, the Son, but in our flesh, God also is dwelling, doing the things that God would have us do. And we can do them because God is with us. God is Emmanuel. God with us. God for us. God in us for the sake of the world. That's who we are as the Church of Jesus Christ. May we never lose sight of that. Jesus lifts it up to us once again today. Now, what about the second business that we read here? And this is a call to service. You know the bit about whoever offers a cup of cold water in a disciple's name is doing the work of God? What does that mean? Notice that these words are addressed to the little ones. The little ones. And so that's our first question. Who are these little ones? Well, maybe all of us think immediately when we hear of the little ones of that image that all of us have in our first Bibles. You know, where you open the Bible and inside is this picture. And what is the picture? Jesus with the little children, saying to the heartless disciples, the big people, what? Suffer the little children to come unto me, and forbid them not, for such is the kingdom of heaven. It is the children, but it's not just the children, because these words, remember, are not spoken to the children. At this point in Matthew's gospel, these words are spoken to his disciples, the little ones. He knows they're little ones. Every blessed Sunday we see how little these dunderheads are, right? They're not Superman. They're people like us, with their shortcomings, but also their blessings. And Jesus then is saying that we are sent as little ones to serve little ones. So, the little ones can be children, but they also can be adults. They can be people who are already inside the community of the church. They can be us, who are card-carrying members of the church. Who else can they be? Whoever it is that is in need, who feels themselves little, or whom the world has branded as little and insignificant and unimportant. And we could probably come up with a pretty good list of people that are, in our view, or the world's view, as somehow less than us. We're pretty good at that, aren't we? Who are the people that Jesus reached out to? Lepers? Now, we don't see many lepers walking around with pustules all over them, but we see a lot of people who feel or who are excluded from relationship with us and others. We are called to get beyond our usual comfort zone and to reach out to other little ones. And I say other little ones because that also implies that we can feel small about ourselves and unable to do the tasks at hand. You know, in the Bible we hear about the poor in spirit. Jesus in his Beatitudes talks about those who are poor in spirit. Who is that? It's people who recognize their need of God, that they cannot do it themselves. They need help. We need help. And so in speaking of those to whom Jesus is sent, the little ones, it's a pretty big club to which we all belong, both as givers and receivers. Now, he talks about also those who give a little, even a cup of water, cold water, are doing God's work. So what does that mean? Water is that which slakes our thirst and gives us a refreshment of life when we are in the midst of an arid desert. That can mean anything from an actual thirst that we all have experienced, no doubt, on a hot summer day somewhere where we're just dying for a drink of water, to anything that we hunger and thirst for, but are unable to attain. And that others who can help us with that are called to do that. It also implies that there is nothing that is too small or insignificant that any of us can do that God isn't watching and blessing, because we have sought to do as he has called us to do. Every year I get this form from the Synod. The Synod loves to send out forms. And then you gotta spend time and fill these things out. Kind of like those irritating things you get on your phone all the time. Every time you go to the doctor, you gotta fill out one of the, well, I stopped doing that a while ago. I mean, I think sometimes I do it, but my goodness, you'd spend all your life filling out those forms. Well, anyhow, the Synod, on this annual form that the bishop sends out to all pastors, there's a question there. How have you seen God acting in your life? And so, what do you say to that? As I think about it, I think, how can I impress the city? How can I say that because of my preaching, every Sunday, every blessed person in Liverpool, Pennsylvania is in church? You know? The big things, the walking on water things, the healing of people, the calming of the storm, all those big things, the peace among the nations. But I think while those things do, of course, happen on occasion, we'd like to have them happen a lot more frequently than they do. Nevertheless, God tends to really bless us, touch our lives, touch the lives of those whose lives we touch through the small things, the things that we tend to discount because they are so small. But again, not small in the eyes of God. I'll just tell you about one way that this past week I was blessed in a little but big way. As you all know, I have been enduring this radiation now for, a long time, many, many, many weeks. And lately, for the last 4 weeks, what I do is get up in the morning as late as possible so that I don't have to endure the prep too long. And they make you, when you have prostate cancer, you got to drink a lot of water before you go to get zapped, so that presumably your bladder, I'm so personal about these things, but anyway, you all know what I'm talking about. So the bladder's full, and so that's in the right position, and when they zap the right place. So anyhow, you got to do this. And believe me, if you know that you have to hold this stuff for as long as an hour, that's the only thing you're thinking of. It's agony. And so what happens is I go in to the hospital, and they push the button, and I go through the door, and I go into a little waiting room. And then there's usually a number of people that are sitting there waiting themselves to get zapped. And then you wait for somebody to come and say, okay, are you ready? And meanwhile, they got a TV up there to try and take your mind off things. And one day this past week, it was bad. It was really bad, folks. And I walked into the room holding my abdomen, looking like death warmed over, and feeling terrible. And I gingerly come in and I sit down. And the guy who is always before me says to me when the door opens and the attendant asks him to come, he says, oh, this guy needs more than I do. Let him go before me. Let him go before me. A simple little thing. This guy doesn't know me from Adam. He doesn't know my name. He doesn't know a thing about me. All these people, we seldom talk to each other in the room, occasionally a little bit pleasantry here and there. But, we're all thinking of the same thing. We want to get out of there. And he was in the same position as me. But he could see that I really needed it, and he could do something about it. Boy, did I bless him. So much so that when I went by afterwards and looked in and saw him waiting there to be the next in line, I even made the sign of the cross before him, because I wanted him to know that I appreciated it, and I thought God did too. But those kinds of things happen every day, and the challenge of the gospel is for them to happen not only to us, but through us. Because there is nothing we cannot do, even in states of what we deem to be weakness. We can make a difference. And we are called to do that very thing. For that is the gospel of Jesus Christ. Now, today is what we Americans call Independence Day weekend, when we celebrate the fact that we were able to become a separate country and tax ourselves rather than have somebody else tax us, name the King of England. And that's important to recognize the freedom to go your own way, to make your own decisions about your life. Liberty is something that's very precious. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, all of these things are very, very precious, and they need to be defended and celebrated and practiced. But I think today is also a little bit misnamed, because I think it's really also the celebration not of our independence, but of our dependence. Our dependence upon one another and upon all those who have gone before us, who have pulled together and made this place, this in many ways unique city set on a hill, to be a beacon of hope and light to the rest of the world. I know that a lot of things are said about America being such a special country, more special than other places. In some sense, God has blessed this country, but not for ourselves alone, for the whole world. And I think it's our privilege to keep that in mind. There's a lot of cynicism. You may have noticed it. People are very cynical about almost everything. But I think of the Pilgrim fathers and mothers and how they looked upon this country and the opportunities that it afforded them that they wouldn't have had other places. In a sense, for them, America was a holy place. Not the only holy place in the world. God loves all people. But it is a very special place that deserves to be nurtured, celebrated, and improved, and loved. And that's what today is also. So I hope that when all of us are just sitting around the pool and eating too much and doing all the things that we enjoy about this kind of a holiday, that we also leave a place in our consciousness, our heart, and soul. Thank God for the chance to be part of what William Penn called a holy experiment. America the Beautiful. Just imagine what it would be like if there was no America in the world today. We don't have to imagine that. Thank God. But we are called to be part of it. To give the world a cup of cold water.